I think we should talk about the Amazon warehouse collapse in Edwardsville and the Mayfield candle factory
Okay.
tornado.
I honestly, like, I read your article about it, and it's really just so sad. It's just so sad, so upsetting. It
Yeah,
just People just living like that, just like slaves. It's modern day slavery, you know. I mean, just being told that if you come if you don't deliver the packages in a fucking
yeah. So there were
tornado,
three
you're
things.
fired.
Yeah. So there were three things that happened. So three things that I mentioned in the piece that I wrote about it. The most famous one is, of course, the text exchange, because a screenshot from the guy's phone kind of went semi-viral. So it was a worker at the Amazon warehouse named Larry Verdon, whose text exchange to his girlfriend took place just about 15 minutes before the tornado ripped through the Amazon warehouse, and he was killed when that happened. So he texted his girlfriend at 8:22 p.m., "Well, I will be home after the storm." And his girlfriend texts back, "What do you mean?" And he replies, "Amazon won't let us leave." And then his girlfriend replies, "All it's doing here is lightning." And then cut to, looks like, if I'm reading this correctly, yeah, about 20 minutes later, you see three text messages that were unread because they just have the check mark. So I guess this was a Facebook Messenger app conversation.
Mm-hmm.
It says, "So what are you doing? I hope everything is okay. I love you." And he never read any of those messages because he was killed while she was sending those texts. The second example is
And that guy survived an IED attack in Iraq. He was a veteran.
He was a veteran. Yep. The second example is in Mayfield, Kentucky, where a scented candle factory was ramping up their candle making operations to a 24/7 schedule to accommodate demand for the holiday season. They were threatened with termination if they left to go home to take shelter before the storm came in. Those workers, unlike the Amazon workers, were aware that the weather was becoming dangerous because they are allowed to carry cell phones on them, unlike the Amazon workers.
Right.
So they were threatened with being fired if they left. When the tornado hit the building, 8 of them were killed. And then the third thing that you mentioned, Russell, something I also put in the article, this incident thankfully did not result in death, but a text exchange that was verified by the local St. Louis area news shows a text exchange between an Amazon driver and dispatch. The driver was basically saying, "I hear all these tornado sirens going around. Can I come back to the warehouse for shelter?" He wasn't even asking to go home. He just wanted to go back to the warehouse to take shelter. So he wasn't asking to leave the job. And his dispatcher replied, "If you decide to return with your packages, it will be viewed as you refusing your route, which will ultimately end with you not having a job come tomorrow morning." Now, the thing that's really sleazy about Amazon...
I mean, that is just so horrible. It's just depressing.
One of the reasons they're allowed to do this shit...
in that position.
Well, one of the reasons that he is in that position, I would assume, I don't know if this was the case in this particular employee's situation, but actually I shouldn't have really used the term employee, because according to reports that I've read, we saw Crystal and Sagar talk about this. They said that only, I don't know if it was 7% of the people working in that Amazon warehouse, or 7 as a raw number, but it was a very small percentage of people working in the warehouse and driving the routes were actually employees of Amazon. A vast majority of them were independent contractors. And when you classify someone as an independent contractor, you are allowed to say to them the kind of shit that the dispatcher said to the driver, because basically an independent contractor can be let go for whatever reason. It's not considered a firing. It's just considered a refusal to rehire. In other words, you're not fired from driving the truck. We're just not going to hire you to drive the truck again. So that's what they mean by "you will not have a job tomorrow." Right. And so they skirt all these regulations because it's very likely that if you were an employee on the books, they would not be allowed to talk to you like that. There would be legal repercussions for you can't threaten an employee with termination for wanting to go not home with the packages, back to the warehouse with the packages to take shelter from a tornado. You wouldn't be able to talk to an employee that way. But you can tell an independent contractor, hey, we'll find someone else to give your route tomorrow if you don't stay out there and finish it. And that's a bit of technical speak, but as a gig worker myself and someone who has been both an employee and an independent contractor throughout my life, I know the difference between them. And I know that you can talk to independent contractors in ways you can't talk to people who are actually employees. And so that's a major difference there. But yeah, just horrible. Just absolutely fucking dystopian, nightmarish, horrible stuff. And the main go ahead.
And this is the same week that the fucking public school teacher Squid Games out in what was it, North Dakota, South Dakota?
Yeah, I've saw stuff like that, but I never.
Cash. It's just the country is just such a downer. Just the whole country is such a downer. It's descending into dystopia. I mean, some of these things are like things that might have been one-off jokes in the original RoboCop. How like ridiculously horrible this future would be, and we're living in it. That's what I feel like. I feel like we're living in New Detroit.
I mean, the point of the article was that at what point do you start blaming capitalism for this shit the way communism gets blamed for all of the atrocities that happen under communism? And some people took that. Some people were very defensive about that situation of, the lady doth protest too much, where they were basically taking that as a defense of communism. And it wasn't meant as a defense of communism. It was just meant as a reminder to, hey, let's keep it real. Because when your crazy uncle at Thanksgiving tells you that 100 million people died under communism, the sort of tacit implication of that is that no one's died under capitalism and because of capitalism. And so this is not to say, that was not meant as a full-throated defense of communism, but it's just going to say, hey, if you're going to say that communism, if you're going to blame the system for these deaths that happened under famines, under communism, and wars fought for resources by capitalist interests have resulted in many a famine over the last 100 years. So if you even want to talk famines, you could talk a lot of capitalist-induced famines over the last 100 years.
Well, not only that, but in regards to COVID, what would the communists have done? They would have fucking vaccinated everybody. What do you mean you don't want a vaccine?
Well, one person,
everybody would have been vaccinated. They would have released the vaccine to the entire world, and everyone would have gotten vaccinated. So capitalism was not up to the task. Communism actually would have handled this better than capitalism has.
Well, sure. One person actually, I mean, this was top 5 dumbest comments to any of our posts. I forget where it was. It wasn't on our page. It was in one of the groups.
That is a really high bar, man.
Well, listen to this. They said their response was, are you saying the Amazon workers wouldn't have died from the tornado under communism?
Where the fuck do these people come from?
I mean, where do you fucking come from? Like, are you saying that the Amazon worker wouldn't have died under communism? I mean,
that's exactly what that article implied. It's so obvious.
Right, exactly. Here's a photo, by the way. This is something that could only happen under capitalism. I wish I had prepped this if I knew we were kind of going here, but I just found this. I'm going to try and hold this up to the camera. This is a Walmart meat section. Can you see that? Can everybody tell what those are? Those are the little electronic sensors that beep when you walk out the door, tied around the steaks.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you see the little black,
yeah.
You know how like some of the like
they have
iPads,
it on clothes usually.
Clothes are like an iPad or some really expensive thing they'll tie around with a sensor. Yeah, now they're doing that with meat in Walmart.
I wonder why Joe Biden's popularity is plummeting by the week.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I mean, it's just
Why would that be happening?
thank you, everybody, for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe wherever you saw it, on YouTube, on Rumble, or on Facebook. We have channels on all three of those platforms. Also, consider helping us create more content by becoming a member at patreon.com/do dissidents or on Facebook, where you can become a supporter right through our Facebook page and get bonus content every week, as well as call-in access to our live stream shows. Thank you very much for your continued support.